Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Pantheon U Entertainment. My name is Micah Daniels. I'll be hosting with you. My co-host tonight is Deandra Simmons. Say hey.
Hey.
All right, we got a little bit of a lag feedback, but you guys can understand. Tonight, we're going to vaguely talk about the war against black men in America, but we're going to emphasize the mental health aspect of that. Well, all right, D. Tonight we're really going to focus on the mental health aspect, but we've got to tie it together, as I said, with profiling, which is one of the main tools that law enforcement uses in order to narrow down certain people that fit into a category of crime abuse. And as we know, police profiling can very quickly turn into racial profiling and racial discrimination. In the year 2015, you would hope that we wouldn't have to deal with these kinds of issues. However, since the civil rights movement, many laws have been put in place that specifically target minorities. In many cases, that targeting can often lead to a fatal outcome, which is why we have so much unrest today. Let's just talk about some of the recent killings of black men. Several years ago, we had Trayvon Martin. About a year or two ago, we had Mike Brown. Last year, we had Eric Garner. And just a couple days ago, in Atlanta, I do believe, we had Anthony Hill, who was killed. And he was completely naked. He had no weapons on him. And the little caveat to that is, he had a mental illness. And that goes along with the topic that we were planning on discussing later on in the show, which we had help from one of my close associates, Phil Williams, in creating a list of things that law enforcement and your elected officials do not have. And that's a sound understanding on how to treat mental illness and how to conduct arrests of those who have mental illness so that they don't come out of it dead. All right, D, what do you think about all the stuff that's been really going on as far as civil unrest and the racial divide in this country?
A standpoint of the racial divide, I really think it's coming to a head. We're falling back into the 60s and 50s, 40s, 30s. I believe a lot of the marching and protest that was done back in the 60s got us to this point, but it's time for us to stand on our own, stand on our own 2 feet and stand on the backs of the people who got us this far, Martin Luther King and all of that, because stand on their backs and further extend and show our children that we don't have to stand for this. If we continue to stand for justice and march out and show our kids that they don't have to accept this, I think essentially we will turn the buck and everyone will see that it wasn't okay in the past, it's not okay now, and it won't be okay in the future.
I tend to agree with you on that statement. I think you're absolutely right. A lot of people won't like me for saying this, but the civil rights movement did very little in the end as far as getting us equality. And what I mean by that is we had people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Bill Cosby, Louis Farrakhan speaking out and pushing for the rights, not just the black.
Agree with you that the civil rights did very little as a movement to helping. I believe we should have stayed a black community, black support blacks, and that's where we would have prevailed.
The funny thing is, if people actually do the research, they will see that before segregation was over during the civil rights movement, that was one of the peaks of black culture. We had our own form of Wall Street. We had our own banks. We had our own businesses. And we supported each other. And they were quality material. After civil rights, when everyone presumed it was successful, that's when you have integration. And they didn't give you equality. They gave people a sense of equality. So they didn't give you the good schools that their children were going to. They provided you an avenue to go to school. And the best example I can give you of that is I saw a picture one day and they said, this is what equality looks like. And they had one kid standing on a cardboard box and another kid standing on the ground. Technically, it's equal because they both get to stand up at the fence. But somebody has a foot up over someone else. And they will never understand it because their perception is from their point of view. And if you look at it today, it's still not equal. There are laws, like I said, that discriminate against minorities. There are profiling procedures. But when we generally get to the meat of it, we were sold a dream. We were given an illusion of equality and civil rights. As you can see in the year 2015, that illusion is still going strong because there are people that will tell you racism doesn't exist, and they will have a straight face when they do it. But there are also people that look like me who think racism doesn't exist. They think that their hard work and picking themselves up by the bootstraps will make them on the same level as someone who started out above the power curve on them. And it just doesn't work that way. An advantage is an advantage no matter how you look at it, and it's set up for us to lose. Which brings us to the more serious aspects of our topic tonight, which is the mental illness portion of the show. Public health institutions, as far as for the mentally ill, were closed down in the late mid-60s. This is also around the time where you start seeing the war on drugs, which is really a war on minorities. So when you couple that with the fact that now these formerly public institutions are now closed, you've got a bunch of unstable people walking the streets. Add that along with the already deeply ingrained fear of the black man that we have in America, and you've got a target on your back. Those people aren't just out there, being crazy. They're sleeping with people, so they're having kids. They might wind up committing robberies and crimes, so they're offending other people. Fast forward a couple years, then you have the advent of gangster rap, which riles up so many other people, and it emphasizes that culture, that lifestyle, which brought about the rise of private prisons and making lucrative profits off of incarcerating people, specifically minorities. Many in that group being victims of mental illness. I don't know how we go to sleep at night. How do we justify that? Because we say, okay, we take them to the doctor and we get them a prescription and they'll be all right. But then they have to find the money to pay for that prescription. Can they hold down a job for that long? It's almost like we said, we can make money another way. We're not worried about you guys anymore. You still going to be lining our pockets while we sleep. My money makes money for itself. So when you add in that capitalistic greed, it makes sense as to why our police officers aren't trained on how to handle patients with mental illnesses. It makes sense why when police officers encounter someone who is mentally ill and irate, especially a dark-skinned person, why they react the way they do. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because as I said before, a lot of these people can function to a degree in society, so they're having kids. And then when you add together, like I said, the targeting of minorities, you've got a bunch of single-parent households. And the parent can't look after the kids the whole time. So now the kids are getting into things when that parent isn't around. And then you continue to add people to that constant recycling criminal justice system. Which, as we can see, was not meant to serve and to protect. At least not to serve and to protect everybody. Because if it were, we would not have all these needless deaths on our hands. They say that if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And I just see society all around me falling for it. Falling for complacency. Being willing to accept that this is how things are and there's no need to change them. Sometimes a revolution is necessary. Maybe it's a revolution on the way you think and in how you conduct yourself. Because this is an issue the government can fix for you. This is an issue that you have to look in the mirror and be willing to fix yourself. It's a popular slogan now that Black Lives Matter. But it should be a popular slogan that human lives matter. Because all of our lives have value. So I challenge you all to take off the blinders. I appreciate you for listening to the show tonight. As always, hit me back in the comment section or privately snap me. If you like the information you heard tonight from myself or my co-host D, please feel free to like and subscribe. We appreciate your support, and we're always working to bring you compelling and entertaining news stories. However, I want you guys to know that at the end of the day, I'm trying to give you insight into things. I want us all to be better people. And it starts one conversation at a time. So tune in next time. I appreciate it. If you didn't like it, I'm sorry. But honestly, I'm not here to tell you what you like. I'm here to tell you what you need to hear. Too many fake people out here. We're going to keep it 100 on this show, though. Y'all have a good night.